when the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Tables turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep fitting in.
Yes, people, what is going on? It's G, and we are back in the building. We are back today with another video. Please, guys, make sure before we even get into it, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share with your mama, share with your mama's mama, share with your auntie, your sister, your cousin, your uncles, your whoever's. Make sure that you guys are obviously sharing this out. Thank you very much. Now that we're done with all the crappy formalities, let's get into it. Today, this is what we're talking about. Centre-back conundrum, or nothing to worry about. So obviously, I was taking a little look at Liverpool a bit more extensively, in the last, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And obviously in our last game against Southampton, we had Ibrahim Konate. He was out with a slight knock. So I'm not going to say injured, so to speak, which, even though technically that's what it is, it's an injury, but to appease the Liverpool fans, I will say that he just picked up a slight knock, but he should be absolutely fine to go to the World Cup, which I hope he does do, because this will be, absolutely major for him. But then it got me thinking, and I've said, I've spoken about this with Jerry and Roms, and we've had a little chat about it in regards to looking to the future. Now, I know a lot of Liverpool fans, in my opinion, I think it's always about the here and now. It's always about, what we've got such and such now. For example, we've got Virgil van Dijk now, so who cares about the future? The future is a few seasons away, and I think that's almost like the mentality that I almost feel that Klopp's almost kind of gone with. I know he's signed players in recent times, like your Simicas's, your Diaz's, Nunes, Fabio Carvalho, and things like that. But there are certain areas of the pitch that I think that we haven't really looked at for the future. Goalkeeper kind of being one. You're probably going to say, what about, Kelleher? I don't see Kelleher staying for too long. I feel that he's a bit better than a number two, and I think he will start to demand a move, which rightly so, to be honest with you. He's a really, really good goalkeeper, and I think he deserves better than being a number two at a club. And centre-back was another area that I kind of looked at. To be honest, there's most of the areas actually on the pitch. I feel that we haven't really got adequate players coming through, so to speak. We've got players, but are they good enough? Are they, going to be the ones that you guys trust to take us through? I beg to differ, and I think in certain cases not really, but I guess we'll deal with that problem when it comes. But centre-back is definitely a place where you would say, on the face of it, when you've got these guys, Virgil van Dijk, Joe Gomez, Matip, Konate. Now, as a quartet, I don't really know of a better one. Not off the top of my head anyway. Guys, please in the comments let me know if you guys think that there's a better quartet than that. There might be, but I generally can't really see it how one of the best centre backs in world football, alongside someone like a Konate, who's one of the best up and coming, or young centre back, should I say, not up and coming, and then you've still got Gomez, who is Premier League standard, and Matip as well, who's definitely of a high standard, especially when he's not injured. He's definitely one of those players that you would love to have in your team. So when I'm looking at Liverpool centre-backs, you're probably thinking, well, there is no conundrum. We're good to go. If anything happens to two of them, we've got other two who can, step in. But are they good enough? That's really where today kind of leads to. So I wanted to have a little chat about, the centre-backs that we've currently got. Obviously, also not forgetting Nat Phillips as well. But I think we can all agree he is fifth choice here at the club. And if a move does become available for him in January, I can see him wanting to take it, just because otherwise he's just been sitting around for ages and not really doing much, to be honest with you. And he has got a career, to think about. So I think for his own career, just like Kelleher, I think they will potentially, just a bit like Nico Williams, look for a move away from Liverpool. Not because they don't like it here, just they've got a football career to think of, and a football career might not be that long, so they're going to need to think about that in the future. But in regards to the four that I mentioned, the quartet, I would say three of those, two for definite, three looking like are quite injury prone. Matip's been out for a little while, as we'll get into. Gomez has obviously had his injury problems. He's been out as well. And Kanate himself has recently had, ever since he had that really big injury for RB Leipzig, he came to Liverpool and he just keeps picking up like little things like here and there. You know, they're never really nothing major, I don't think, but he does pick up his fair share of injuries. And I think that is definitely something that we need to look at. But what I want to start with, shall we say? Let's start with the big man. Let's start with Virgil van Dijk. Obviously, he's the stalwart. He's the boss, shall we say, at the back there. You know, he steps in as captain if Jordan Henderson isn't on the pitch, and James Milner isn't on the pitch. He's I think it would go Hendo, Milner, and then Van Dijk, and then whoever after that. So he's the big boss. But how's he really been? Before the injury, I would definitely have said best centre back in world football, best centre back that we've probably seen in the Premier League. Well, he was performing at a level that would suggest that he was, you know, one of the best centre backs that the Premier League has seen, and I still think that's the case today. I don't really think that has actually changed, so to speak. But this season, now look, of course, Liverpool's performances this season have been really poor overall. I think they would have to agree with that. Well, I mean, they don't have to, but I think they would agree with that, so to speak. You know, a lot of players, Van Dijk mainly, their performance levels have dropped quite dramatically this season in comparison to what we, you know, already know them as. You know, we know that they're players who, you know, perform at like optimum level, and this season they just really haven't. And if you take a look here at his average rating, sorry, the GTV sign is in the way, but if you look at it, his overall, this is from SofaScore, by the way, big up themselves. Average rating is 7.01, I believe. I mean, look, you can kind of see here over the last few games what his rating's been. You see the Forest game, you see the Leeds game, you see the what do you call it, the Spurs game, 6.9, 6.9, 6.7. Southampton game, we won 3-1, you know, just recently, 7. West Ham game, just after that Manchester City game, which was obviously a 7.3. Now, obviously, that's not his, his overall rating obviously ends up at 7.01 for the season. But in a general sense, over the last few games, I think he's been a little below par, if I'm being totally honest with you. Liverpool concede a lot of goals. Now, that's not just down to Van Dijk. You know, that's a collective, definitely. I'm not going to blame one single person for Liverpool's demise, because that's not the case at all. But when I look at Van Dijk, if you remember Van Dijk, and for me, I think what epitomizes it is when I look at this. So obviously, this is Van Dijk's record since he joined the Premier League in a general sense. So obviously, again, these are stats, the actual stats itself, obviously taken from the 16-17 seasons, where you can see his average ratings. They don't have the ratings from before that or before that season. Take out obviously the 2021 season, which he obviously got himself injured in. Quite worrying though that he played, let's say he played 4 games, if you count the 5th one as the injury, 4 games and he got 6.26. But we'll put that down to the injury in itself. But, you know, you look at, 16-17 season, really performed pretty decently. Only played 21 games in the Premier League. They got 7.34. 17-18 season, that's the year that he moved to Liverpool in January of 2018. And obviously the first part he was at Southampton, performed pretty decent, played 25 games, 7.22. Now the next 2 seasons, actually the next 3, taking out the 2021 seasons, look at the amount of games that he played. 38, take out that season, 34. He's on 14 at the moment. I can see him making over 34 again this season. Now, for me, that's not too, I don't mind you doing it maybe 1 season if there's injuries, and obviously you are best centre back, so of course you're going to need to always, kind of play. And that might have been the case. Obviously, we know that Joel Matip and his kind of injury list and things like that, we'll get into that in a minute, was a little bit crazy. But when I look at it, I'm just like, this guy's playing a lot of games. Now, this is just Premier League, by the way, guys. I haven't thrown up the Champions League stats. Have a look for yourself. This is on FOT mobile app. And when I'm looking at that, I'm like, right, you're playing a lot of games, big man. You're playing a lot of games, man. You are exhausting yourself. And again, this goes back to Klopp's tactics. This goes back to how Klopp likes to use his team. So if you can imagine, we've been in the Champions League, League Cups, FA Cups. So take out maybe the League and FA Cup where Van Dijk might not necessarily play those early rounds. And you look at the Champions League where he will more than likely play a minimum probably of 4 games barring injury. So you're saying, on top of the 38 games you're playing, you're going to play a minimum of 4 in the group stages and then whatever else after that if Liverpool make it through. You're playing well over 4, like that's 40 games just in that spot. Now, if Liverpool get through to the latter stages of everything, that's a lot of games that you're playing. And I think it goes back to Klopp and his lack of rotation for the team in a general sense. We know that Klopp likes to work with a small squad. Is that a good thing? Not really, if you're not a team who don't refresh the team, in terms of signing new players to get in the new energy and stuff like that. I don't think that. I think you hit a spot. You hit a point where it's almost like certain players are now getting a bit tired. Certain players are now getting a little bit overworked, and you start to think, it's one of those catch-22s. As good as Van Dijk is, and I'm not saying that Van Dijk can't play that many games because clearly he did, but when I do look at it, sometimes I am thinking, he's playing a lot. If we go back and just take a quick look, he got injured in the 2021 season. Obviously, only played 5 games. In the 21-22 season, the season after that injury, he's played 34 matches. He's only missed 4 games. And I'm sitting there thinking, bloody hell, he just come back from an injury. And that was last season. And I know obviously Liverpool were on this quadruple run and stuff like that, but when does the guy get a rest? Do you know what I mean? When do you drop him? When do you just give him a bit more? Just give him a bit more to be able to find that time to rest, the time to be able to relax. I mean, 4 games out of 38 that you're not playing in, I don't feel like that's enough time. Again, on top of playing probably every Champions League game, in fact, every single game on the run up to the final in itself, and things like that. And I'm thinking, that is a little bit techie. Considering Liverpool have quite injury-prone centre-backs, and we'll get into those, Matip, Konate and Gomez in a second. Considering that they've got those, to then have a player that's always playing, I feel like you've got to just rotate it a bit better. And he's getting older as well. He's not 25, 26. He's in his 30s now. So he's definitely a player who is definitely going to need that rest over the coming time. And I think that's where I look at, again, you look at Matip. Now, this is Matip's injury list right here. It makes for horrible reading. There was 2 pages of this. The other page, I think, was his time at Schalke. And if you just look like Matip, and the thing is, I like Matip quite a lot. I think Matip is excuse me, just drinking something. I think Matip is a very, very good player. He offers you something different. He's the best, in my opinion, the best ball-playing centre-back that we have at the club. Can bring the ball out from defence quite seamlessly. Can pick out a pass, can thread a pass. I've seen him do quite a few times into very, very good positions. But when you look at that injury record, you're just sitting there thinking to yourself, blimey, that is a bit scary. That is a bit scary. I feel sorry for him, because had he not had all of these injuries, he'd probably be a mainstay alongside, someone like Virgil van Dijk. And you never even know. That might have even prompted, Jurgen Klopp to be able to then say, okay, you know what? Let's try out something different. Let's do something a little bit different. Let's see if we can't, potentially get in, I don't know, maybe a 3 at the back, for example, because we've got Gomez, we've got Konate, we've got Matip, we've got Van Dijk. So that might have not necessarily have been too much of an issue, for Jurgen Klopp. But, it's unfortunately one of those kind of things, man. I guess we'll never realistically see that. And then if you look here at Konate's injury, now, obviously for some weird reason it doesn't show. It doesn't show you from last season for some weird reason. I don't know why. I feel like he was injured last season. But obviously, if you look here, he's already missed 10 games this season. Had obviously that massive injury at RB Leipzig, which is obviously going to play a part in the future for Konate. So not to get on to him too much, but I do feel that recently, especially in 2022, I feel like this guy's picking up a fair few injuries. And he's a fantastic player. He's definitely a player that, you know, you'd want in the squad. He's definitely a player that you want in the team, to be honest with you. And dare I say it, he's someone that I would want for the future. If he's not so injury prone, definitely. If he is, then not really, to be honest with you. I don't find any value in keeping players who are injury prone. I'm not saying for definite that he is like a Matip or a Gomez, who I feel that are quite injury prone. I just think that it is something that we do just need. It's almost like just keep an eye on, just to kind of, you know, keep an eye on. Is that gonna play a part for too much longer? Is that something that maybe can get better over time? Potentially. Again, this isn't nothing I'm going to say here is kind of definitive or anything like that. It's just more to get the brain working. It's just more to get everybody thinking. Do you know what I mean? Is it what they make it out to be, or is there really something else that's kind of going on behind it? Obviously, this is Joe Gomez. Now, Joe Gomez, I don't know, man. This guy, again, this is only up until the 2021 season, so hasn't shown anything for this season. But, oh, Jesus Christ, this guy has missed a lot of games. You know, he has missed a lot of games. You just look at the numbers that you're seeing. You know, 15-16, obviously had that crazy cruciate ligament injury, missed 52 games. 16-17, missed 15 games. 17-18, missed 7 games. 18-19, he missed 23 games. 2021, he missed 39 games. I think there was more in there, but again, it doesn't bring it all up. But that's too many games that we're missing from. That's 3 centre backs that I've just shown you. Take out. We'll put Konate an asterisk next to it. Yeah, you're looking at Gomez and Matip. That's too many games, man, that your centre backs are missing in a season. Like, even for any player, like, we get onto Naby Keita constantly. We get onto Naby Keita. You know, I've seen fans I get onto Naby Keita sometimes, and I've seen fans go ham on someone like a Naby Keita for the amount of games that he misses. But then there's Matip, and then the Gomez. You know, just like, bro, like, I don't, to miss that many games, that's a lot of games, man. And I think that doesn't bode well for the future. Now, Matip, again, he's in his 30s as well, so. We do need to be looking towards that future. Is Joe Gomez going to stay here? Is Joe Gomez a player that we should be keeping here? There was going to be last season, or this season, shall we say, at the beginning, there was that little kind of, will he sign, in the summer kind of thing? Should he stay on? And, maybe should he look for pastures new because he won't really get the game time? Obviously, he's gotten the game time this season due to injuries, coincidentally. But his form has been poor. His form has been really, really poor. Bar the one game against Manchester City, which everybody was on like Super Saiyan Ultra Instinct level, for that game. Otherwise, everybody was kind of at, really throughout the season, has been on base level, and him particularly. We've seen a lot of mistakes from Joe Gomez, the blind passes, the lack of positional awareness and things like that, alongside Van Dijk as well. Listen, let's tell it how it is. You know how I stay, like, we got to say it how it is. Van Dijk as well has been poor at points this season, more so than, even if you probably added up all of the things that he's done throughout his Liverpool career, I'd probably say this has been the one season where he's probably outdone it. To be honest with you, he's been just making crazy mistakes, not engaging. Doesn't look like, I don't know if it's because of the World Cup. We'll find out once the World Cup is finished. But he just doesn't feel like he's been himself. And even now, I think even attackers are not stupid. They smell blood when it comes to Van Dijk. 100%, they smell blood when it comes to him, because in their eyes, before that, and I know people like to make fun, there was this aura around Van Dijk, in regards to the way that he defends and stuff like that, and how most people, you didn't even want to get near him. You didn't even want to stand next to him. you always used to see, you know, attackers would most likely want to stand on the other defender, whether it be Gomez, Konate, or Matip. And, you know, it's not like Konate is an easy defender to come up against, but such was the presence of Virgil van Dijk, it just seemed like the easier option, you know, for many people. So, you know, that again, these are little things, but again, get the brain working, because at the end of the day, you know, for Liverpool Football Club to move forward into an era of dominance, if that's what they are trying to do, you know, with the new owners potentially coming in and stuff like that, these are things that we're going to need to think about. These are things that we're definitely going to have a conversation about at the bare minimum, to be honest with you. So for me personally, I'm definitely looking at that and thinking to myself, you know, do we look at other centre backs in the future? You know, coming at the end of the season, I know people don't like these whole fire sales and stuff like that, you know, getting rid of so many players, but I personally believe that Liverpool should be doing that. You know, between the January transfer window, and in the summer, I definitely believe that Liverpool should be looking at potentially trying to move on quite a lot of players, you know, injury-prone players especially. I definitely think we need to move away from that. You know, we need to move away from that kind of Moneyball kind of model that we've adopted under FSG and Jurgen Klopp, which is, you know, picking up players, you know, at decent to low value, bar, you know, Van Dijk and Alisson, but picking up players at like these kind of low values because of maybe injury histories and things like that. And, you know, yes, they can perform. And when they do perform, most of them will perform at a very, very high level. But are we getting the maximum from these players? And what I mean by maximum is not just a 2-year period, which I think Liverpool have had, which is 18-19 and 19-20. That 2-year period was Liverpool at their maximum, absolute maximum. But if you look either side of it, you know, before that, it was getting there. We finally get there. 2 years, really probably one of, if not the best team in Europe, or definitely in the top 3 at the bare minimum, alongside like Real Madrid and Manchester City. And then now you just look at it and you just think, bloody hell, these guys have just run out of gas. Do you know what I mean? I know we went on this, and again, I keep doing this in quotes, but we went on that quadruple run. But you could see throughout the season, as the season kept going on, the players were just out of gas. And you could see it in games that what was winning us games, even though we were winning games, it was just pure individual quality. It wasn't through performances. The performances were very, very poor. It was just individual quality getting us through. What we're seeing now this season is individual quality continuing that. It's just that now the performances are so bad, it's just becoming a lot more noticeable. Hence the reason why, in my opinion, Alisson's our best player. This has been the best player for Liverpool, probably by a bit of a country mile, to be honest with you. Without him, I haven't got a clue where Liverpool would be. Definitely wouldn't be in the top 6. Definitely wouldn't be as close to the top 4 as we are. Probably shouldn't be, based on some of the performances that we put in this season. But Alisson has saved us. He's actually reminded me of David De Gea through a few seasons ago, where he was just immense for Manchester United. I just hope he doesn't go that David De Gea route and, you know, ends up in the position that David De Gea is in now, which is, you know, kind of just in and out of form, might have a good game one day, crappy game the next. And, you know, it just seems like everything is caught up with him. But look, we're here to talk about the centre-backs. So I wanted to take a quick look at, there's 3 centre-backs. I think that Liverpool, in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, this isn't factual or anything like that. So please, guys, in the comment section, and also make sure you like and subscribe this video. In the comment section, let me know, are there any centre-backs out there in the world of football that you guys believe, you know, we should potentially look at for the future or for the here and now? You know, swap for a Gomez or not Konate, because I want to keep him, but for like a Gomez and Matip. Those are the 2 I'm kind of really looking at the moment. And I think that we do need an upgrade, so to speak, not necessarily because I don't think the players I'm about to mention are better than a Gomez or, well, not better than a Matip. I think they're all on the same level. It's just they're a lot more reliable, and it might just be something that we may or may not need to, you know, potentially look at. So here's the first player I wanted to look at. Pau Torres of Villarreal. Very good defender. Very good defender. Has been touted by quite a few clubs in and around Europe over the last season or 2. To be honest with you, I thought he was going to be on the move in the summer. Obviously not so. Uh, decent. One main thing about him, now, this is where I look to the future. This is where I start saying, is this something that we could potentially start looking at? Especially as we've got someone like a Konate, still in the team. Look at his heat map. That left-hand side. He's a centre-back, by the way, guys. That left-hand side, that's all him. That's all him. That's in the Van Dijk position. If you look at that, that's Pau Torres. And then if you look at Van Dijk, very, very similar. Very similar. So they both occupy the same positions, on the pitch. And if we look at some of the stats, from Pau Torres himself, and I'll get up, let's look at his defending stats. Now, this is all from this season, by the way, guys. But if you look at here, he's kept 6 clean sheets this season, interceptions per game, 0.2, tackles per game, 0.7, possession 1 in the final third, 0.2, dribbles passed per game, only 0.2, which is really good. Clearances per game, 4. Errors leading to a shot, which is obviously a 2. Errors leading to a goal, 0. Penalties committed is 0. So obviously this is a player who, when I look at, just solid. He just reminds me of someone who would be a solid option. I don't think he would cost that much to be able to sign from a Villarreal, again, unless he's got a release clause, and the release clause is really, really high. That might be a player. Again, this is just almost like my short list of players that I would definitely think that Liverpool, they probably do have these kind of players on their short list, but just the kind of, see, if you take a look at his dribbling stats, this is from a centre back, by the way, guys. There is one worrying one in there, of course, but he's successful dribbles, 0.5 at 64%, total duels 1, 3.4, 51%, ground duels 1, 2, 57%, aerial duels 1, 1.4, which is only 44%. Possession lost, though, is a worry. Possession lost 9.3. I look at that and I think, with the way that Liverpool play, and again, I'm talking to you guys here about players potentially on the shortlist, but at the same time, we're looking at this together, and that I'm saying this might be a player that we might potentially look at, but at the same time, will he fit what Liverpool and how Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp want us to play, or how they want us to play, in the future? Maybe not. But when I look at the left-sided centre back, that's an area that I think, how many other left-sided centre-backs, or how many of them are there in the world performing at a decent level, who could potentially come in? If we look at his passing stats here, touches per game, 69.8, big chances created, 1, key passes per game, 0.7, accurate per game, 51.2, 87%, which is fantastic. Accuracy own half, 31.4, brilliant, 93%. Accurate opposition half passes, 19.8, 78%. Accurate long balls, 4.9, 62%. Accurate chip passes, 4.1, 56%. And obviously no crosses, which is absolutely fine. But when I do look at that, this reminds me a bit of Matip, but just a left-sided centre-back version. When I look at these kind of stats, accurate per game, the accurate in the own half, but it's the long balls, which Van Dijk does and loves to do. It's the accurate chip passes. Not to say Van Dijk does that a lot, but I think that's more a Joel Matip kind of thing. Touches per game, 69.8. So he is someone who does like to get on the ball quite a lot. So he reminds me of, like I said, he reminds me more of the left-sided version of a Joel Matip. Hence the reason why I stated before is that I don't think he's at the Van Dijk level. No way. I think Van Dijk is that level above, but Joel Matip is very, very close to that level. And I think Pau Torres might just be someone who, again, like I said, you may not like him. He's not at the top of my list, to be honest with you, purely just because maybe if he does join a team like Liverpool, he could potentially, he would get better, straight away just from joining a better team, performing in a better league, fighting in so many different competitions. So, but I just think that is someone maybe, like I said, maybe. But let's move on to the next player. Alessandro Bastoni, Inter Milan centre back. Now, Bastoni, really, really good defender. Really, really good defender. Again, another player I thought was going to be on the move in the summer. I think Tottenham were linked with him throughout the summer. I think Antonio Conte really, really liked him. definitely someone that he would know from his time, obviously in Italy, Inter Milan, and at Juve, and the way that Tottenham, I think, want/play with the three at the back, he suits that down to a T. If we look at his heat map here, again, down that left-hand side, again, this is a centre back that we're talking about, guys. This isn't a left back at all. But if you look at that, down that left-hand side, that's all occupied by him. You know, that's someone who does like to play on that left-sided centre-back position. So I'm looking at him. And the reason why I'm looking more at left-sided centre-back, so the next player I put after this, again, is going to be the same, is because I'm looking at Konate and I'm saying Konate kind of has got that right side, in my opinion. He's kind of got it locked down now for the future. It's where do we look at for the left-sided side? Because we've tried other players there and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work to the same effect, you know, in my personal opinion. You know, we look at his average rating, hasn't really been too great. You know, really hasn't actually been too great. 6.87 there. Last few games been okay. The game on the 9th of November, I think that's Bologna, 6.3. Very, very, very poor game. But as an average this season, 6.87. So you're looking at his average and thinking, not really. He's been a bit like Van Dijk. Their averages this season just haven't really been. It must be a left-sided centre-back thing. The averages this season haven't really been, you know, that great in all honesty. But me, I'm a stats guy. I like looking at the numbers, and obviously the eye test is probably the most important thing, you know, when you're watching these players. So guys, if you haven't watched Bastoni for Inter Milan, do take a look at him. He is a very, very clean defender. We look at his defending stats here. He's only kept 1 clean sheet this season. Interceptions per game, 0.7. Tackles per game, 0.9. Possession 1 in the final third, 0.3. Dribble pass, 0.3. Clearances, 0.8. No errors leading to shots, no errors leading to goals, and no penalties committed. So, you know, sturdy. You know, let me not say sturdy, steady defender. Quite young, so might be potentially a better option than a Pau Torres, potentially, just due to age and maybe not wanting to command a spot in the team straight away. But again, this allows for Van Dijk to have a rest every now and again. Van Dijk is still a fantastic defender, guys. I'm going to keep reiterating this because I know when you guys watch this back, you're probably going to think this guy is just trying to bash Van Dijk. And it's like, no. I think Van Dijk is still one of the best centre-backs in world football. Don't know where I would rank him, but I'll just say he's definitely one of the best still out there. And I do hope that after the World Cup, we will see the Van Dijk that we remember at the bare minimum. I don't like the excuses that people bring about, as much as it plays a tad bit of a part in terms of Liverpool's midfield. There are certain things in games that have got nothing to do with Liverpool's midfield and everything to do with the defending of our defenders this season. If you just look back at Liverpool's record this season, how many clean sheets do we actually have? Not many. You know, conceded a goal against Southampton, you know, lost out to Leeds, lost out to Nottingham Forest. You know, I think we've had Everton this season in the Premier League. That's the only game I can remember. Oh, and Bournemouth. Can't remember another game off the top of my head in the Premier League where we haven't conceded. You know, it's quite worrying considering we've got probably the best goalkeeper in world football, to be conceding this many goals and supposedly the best centre back, supposedly the best right back, supposedly the best left back. We're conceding a lot of goals. And it's not all down to just the midfield. It is down to some of the defending that has been on display. But again, look, Bastoni is someone that I do like. Again, on the short list, in my opinion, for players that can play that left-sided side, and someone who I just think maybe we should just keep an eye on in the future. You know, if we look at his dribbling stats, successful dribbles 0.3 at 50%, total duels won 2.8 over half, 56%. Ground duels won over half again, 1.6. Aerial duels won, quite brilliant, 1.2, 62%. Possession lost a bit less than Pau Torres at 8. Fouls 0.6, was fouled 0.5, and no offsides, of course, because he's not striker. So again, steady numbers. I couldn't think of any real other centre backs that I'm looking at and thinking, oh my goodness, their numbers are absolutely crazy. There are a lot of other centre backs out there, by the way, guys. Please don't think that I've just picked out these 3 centre backs, and those are the only ones. You know, when we get into the transfer window and stuff like that, there will be other players that I will be mentioning. Bella Kotchap from Southampton is definitely one player that I did think of. He is going to the World Cup, and I might just have to add him to that list because I think he's a fantastic defender, absolutely fantastic. But I'm just looking at players who are Liverpool would potentially sign because they're at that level already. If you notice the players, you know, Van Dijk, Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, Luis Diaz, Darwin Núñez, Diogo Jota, they've all played at a very good level prior to coming to Liverpool for a couple of seasons already, and then we've signed them, and then we take them up to, you know, that next level. And I feel like with Bastoni and with Pau Torres, I think those are 2 players that again fall into that kind of bracket as well. So let's move on to the last one of the day. Gaviadal from RB Leipzig. Now this is the one that I really like. He is the one who I'm looking at and I'm thinking, I like this guy. Again, like I said, sometimes it's not all about the stats. Sometimes, and obviously I threw the stats up just so that you guys can get like if you didn't know about these players and you know you just wanted to take a little look at them yourselves, just to kind of give you some type of indication in regards to some of them. But he's a player, eye test wise, I really like him. Left-footed, which bloody helps quite immensely because we I feel like we do need that. Look at his heat map here. Just like the other 2 down that left-hand side, you know, follows the same pattern of all the other left-sided centre-backs that I've mentioned. If we look at his passing stats, touches per game, 62.1, key passes, 0.3. Now, this is really good. He's got really good accurate passing. Accurate passes per game, 49, 89%. You know, accurate in his own half, 33.4, 96%. Accurate long balls, over half, 51%. Accurate in the opposition half, which I find quite telling, 78%. You know, I don't know if RB Leipzig play a 3 at the back. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Which, of course, might actually be to his benefit. Of course, in different systems, you're going to be able to do that because he's got accurate crosses, 0.1 at 100%. So, but it's the accurate in the own half and the accurate per game I'm looking at 89 and 96% respectively. And when I look at those kind of numbers, and again, like I said, eye test is everything. When you do watch him, big, strong, like look at this guy, come on. He looks like a unit, and he's still young. Do you get what I mean? He's still a young player. Still his early 20s, so he's a unit at that age already. Chelsea were looking at him in the summer. There was talks that a deal might have already been agreed for him for the summer of 2023. I don't know if that's actually confirmed. I hope not, because if not, Liverpool definitely need to be, in my opinion, he's the one I really want. If I had to pick between him, Pau Torres, or Alessandro Bastoni, I would probably go for Gaviadal. Like, he seems like just a monster, you know, in that defensive position. Let's take a look at his defending stats here. Clean sheets 1, interceptions 0.6, clearances per game 1.5, errors leading to a shot is 1, dribble pass per game 0.3, possession 1 in the final third 0.2. So again, quite basic. If we take a look at his average rating this season, so obviously this is showing you his monthly average rating since the beginning of the year. Pretty good, if I'm being honest with you, especially from January up until May. Kept it at a very decent level. Looking from July onwards, he's been a little bit, you know, in the last year, 6.99 average score. But if you look, it's like good, in my opinion. I think better than a Pau Torres and better than Alessandro Bastoni. So I feel that he is definitely someone who just take a look at. Just definitely take a look at. Let's you know, take a look at his dribbling stats. But he's definitely someone that on that left-hand side, why not? Again, I don't know what the figures would be for someone like him, but he's definitely someone I'm looking at and thinking, why not? Successful dribbles 0.6, total duels won 2.5 at 62%, ground duels won 1.7, 67%, aerial duels won 0.8, 53%, possession lost 6.5, fouls 0.3, was fouled 0.7. This is a player who gets himself about, and I think that what this also allows is for us to, which I do, me, Jerry, and Roms, we've spoken about this quite a lot this season. I feel like it was probably one of the first few, if not the first, Liverpool kind of podcast YouTubers who were speaking a lot about Liverpool playing three at the back. That was something that not many people, if anybody, really wanted to do. A lot of people gave quite a lot of backlash to that, which I found funny, because a few months later, a lot of people are then screaming for Liverpool to play three at the back because they think that it will help Trent Alexander-Arnold, which is funny because we're not thinking about any other position but Trent's position. So we want to play three at the back to be able to negate his defensive issues that he's had, obviously, this season. But I feel like if you've got someone like a Gaviadal, if you've got someone like a Bastoni, two players who I think are probably used to playing in those back threes, that could work for Liverpool moving forward. Even if you still kept a Van Dijk there, you could still have a Van Dijk with Gaviadal on the left-hand side, left-footed, and then you've still got Konate on the right-hand side, right-footed, with Van Dijk just patrolling. Again, we know that Klopp isn't really tactically flexible. Do you get what I mean? He's someone, he keeps it basic. He keeps it as simple as possible. We've seen him revert back to a 4-3-3. The second he got a few players back, it was boom, straight back to that. He'll probably dress it up as a 4-3-1-2, but in the way that we play and our passages of play, it ends up being a 4-3-3 effectively. So I feel that this would help towards that in the future and just gives us options. I'm not saying that we have to play three at the back. I'm not saying that three at the back is going to be the answer to all of our prayers, because it might not. Do you know what I mean? It might actually not even work, but it'll be nice to at least attempt. It'll be nice to at least even see whether or not this is something that, Liverpool could potentially do, So again, look, that's just all of this today. I hope you guys obviously like the video, but all of this today isn't to say Liverpool got a problem. I'm not really heading down that kind of route yet. After the World Cup will be very, very telling, though. Our transfer business in the January will be very telling, but the summer it will be very, very telling in regards to where are we going, what are we trying to do, And I think obviously depending on what happens this season, that will then determine those factors. So, we can't tell the future, so we won't really ever know until that point. But for me, I just think that, like with the three that I just named, this is just to get the brain working. These are players who, bar Gaviadal, who picked up that injury, these are players who don't get injured too often. They've had their injuries, of course. I'm not saying that they're completely injury free, because that is an absolute lie. But these are players who I just think moving forward, maybe just keep your eye on, guys. Maybe just keep your eye on these players. See how they perform over the next 6 months or so. And then kind of make your own judgment from there. Let me know in the comments if there are any other, centre backs you guys think we should be taking a look at, or centre backs that you guys like. Are there centre backs who maybe are better suited to the way that we want to play? I might have completely missed out on a few of them, and I would love to know from you guys in the comment section as to which players that might be. I'll take a look at them. I love researching players and just finding out about new players and what they can do and how that can be implemented, into our squad and things like that. So please, guys, don't feel like I'm telling you this to say these are the guys that we should definitely sign. No, these are just the ones that, in my opinion, I like, and I think that could do a very good job for Liverpool. But that's not definitive at all. That, I might change my mind in 6 months' time if they start performing absolutely poorly and another centre back then comes to light. Like I said, Bella Kotchap is one that I'm looking at and I'm thinking, that might be one during the World Cup. If he does get games, I don't know if he will, but if he does, watch out for him. Just see how he performs in the World Cup with the Germany squad, and see how that might be a player that Liverpool could already be looking at. We know we like Southampton, Sadio Mane, Dejan Lovren, Virgil van Dijk. So we have history. Adam Lallana, Ricky Lambert, Jesus Christ. We've had history with them, so that these could be players that we could potentially be, taking a look at. So look, that's the end of my video for today. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you're following. Please share this out to as many people as possible. Let's get them views up, let's get them likes up, let's get them subscribers up. Trying to bring you as much real content from a Liverpool fan's perspective. You guys already know I don't do any of this wishy-washy stuff. I like to just say it how it is, and I like to think that I'm just telling you what it is for you guys to be able to see. But I love a debate. I love everyone else's opinions. Please drop your opinions in the comment section. Let's start a dialogue, man. Let's start a dialogue, and then hopefully in the future we can have a bigger dialogue on a bigger stage. But that's me. I'm G, and I'm out.